Okay, good now. Okay, cool.
Sorry.
No problem. Uh, recommended a plan, did public participation, and then continuous compliance review, which is it's all part of the standard CWMP process. It From there we had to fast forward all the way to 2015. That whole process took many, many, many years. Um, we came out in 2015 with the final recommended plan, and now here we are in 2025, and we finally finished our first phase. So it hasn't been a fast process like everybody is, I'm sure, discovering now that's currently doing a CWMP. It's a process. And a lot of it's just you end up readdressing issues over and over again as new people come on, as other people leave, as new technologies come out. There's a million reasons why we were able, we get sidetracked. But in that final plan, we came out the pretty common solutions, which is start out with the shellfish. Um, we were dealing with that when I was in Tisbury. We talked about it right off the bat. It was a very heavy topic. Mashpee went all in on the shellfish, and then they found out that the water was so bad it was just killing all the animals. It was just a never-ending money pit. And so the town has decided to take it as an approach that it is a good tertiary treatment. Let's solve the source of the pollution. Then we can look at, getting all the shellfish in the water to help maintain what we were able to do. Another big part of it was the plan was to join Joint Base Cape Cod. They had a treatment plan on there. So the thought process was to connect portions of the town sewer to there, and just let the base handle the load. That was actually Sandwich's whole plan for their town. And just a couple months ago, they got a letter from the DEP, who had been working with them developing this plan for the last 8 years, and said, you can no longer do that. It will not be funded. And that was just because the base had a private entity, the company called Converge, take over their wastewater treatment process, which apparently now made it that they can't use the public money to tie into a private entity. So it kind of torpedoed their whole plan, and they're now readjusting to more go align with traditional sewering and IAs. The other option, third option, was the water resource recovery facility, wastewater treatment plant. I think that's the new name that they're using now for wastewater treatment facilities, and which we just completed. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Use of existing private wastewater facilities. We do have many of them in our town. We have been continuously evaluating. Again, I'll talk about those later. And then coordinating with adjoining towns. So we came out with our MOUs with Barnstable, Sandwich, Falmouth, and Mashpee. And it's really opened the door for communication between the towns and aligning. Like, for example, well, unfortunately, all the towns around Mashpee, we're kind of the center town, and we're at the end of all their sewer plans. So it's at first that was very upsetting to us, but it does make sense for those towns. But they've all demonstrated that when we ask questions, can we do this? They're willing to work with us and jump on board. It just financially, it makes more sense to start where, like everybody else, get the low-hanging fruit before you reach out to the wider areas. So the MOU has actually been very helpful in keeping those communications open, and it's allowed us to have regularly scheduled meetings as opposed to only when you need it. And unfortunately, whenever that happens, it's hard to get everybody in the same room. But by regularly scheduling these meetings, it's really kept the progress going and allowed the exchange of ideas to continue back and forth. The other one is the looking at alternative technologies. We're fortunate we have Mass Tech literally 15 minutes away. I drive out there a couple of times a year just to see what's going on and get involved in what they're doing, and get to see them at a lot of our informational events. To coordinate with the Cape Cod Commission because of the 208 plan, which one of the projects, like I said, I'm really excited about. I'll talk about later. They gave a full written endorsement to the DEP well before we were ready to submit. So it was a good push that we're going in the right direction. And then just long-term monitoring. I'll talk a little bit about that one right now. Is we revamped our Department of Wastewater Management, is how it's referred to, not the sewer department. And we've brought water quality from the DNR under wastewater, since our whole goal is water quality goals. And it's really streamlined the projects moving forward and the passing of information. Because when you're dealing with other department heads, it's sometimes, their priorities are not exactly our priorities. And by bringing that water quality specialist under our department, it's sped up the process. It's allowed us for better planning. And ultimately, we're now in the process of trying to build a state certified lab. And that person hopefully will be running that lab for us. And so that can also help with the monitoring of the IA systems for our town people and try to keep those costs down. So we're really excited about that. Next slide here. Whoops.
The Otis Air Force Base lab is not appropriate to use.
So we're limited on what we can do with the base because it is still an active base. So getting access is kind of an issue. We also have the county lab. They help out a lot, but a lot of times since I am in Mashpee now, I'm kind of enjoying this easiness of getting our labs off instead of trying to get to the Island Queen at the first boat in the morning so the guy could pick it up for us. I literally hop in the car, drive 15 minutes to Sandwich and drop it off in Virotech and take care of the lab. So I'm starting to get a little spoiled in that way, not the Vineyard way.
Life is different.
Very, very much different. So the planning, so it's a 5-phase approach, dealing with 2 major watersheds, Pompanesset and Wacoit Bay. Pompanesset has been our primary focus right now. It's our bigger watershed. We have done phase 1 has been built and it's up and running. We had phase 1A, and now we're currently beginning construction of our phase 2, which is an additional 1,200 homes. And then we're going to move over to Wacoit Bay so we can test and monitor what progress we've done and how is it actually affecting, as opposed to just building it all out and then hoping for the best. We're going to take a pause and actually monitor and see if we see any improvement. The plan relies on multiple nitrogen management strategies, which is the sewer treatment facility connecting to private treatment facilities and the shellfish. We have been evaluating private treatment facilities. One of the things we do have is very large RBC facilities in a place like Willow Bend. They really would like us to take over, but unfortunately, a lot of these systems are aging out. They're over 20 years old, and the equipment is aging out. Even though it's been well maintained, if the town takes it over, it's a high liability at this point that we could end up getting stuck with a very expensive bill. So we're continuing our talks with those private entities to see if maybe they'll upgrade them first, but we're willing to take it over because they do have recharge. That's our biggest issue, is trying to find recharge in Mashpee. This is
find what? I'm sorry.
Recharge, where to put the water. So the state, it's been the biggest aggravation on Cape Cod is the state has mandated all the sewering, but they keep restricting where we can get rid of the water and how much water. And it's been very frustrating, especially, and I don't say this in a bad way, but we do have like in Mashpee, about 51% of our town is conservation land of some sort. And unfortunately it runs right down the middle of the town. Now it's a good thing, but currently as it stands, we're not supposed to use that as a recharge area for wastewater. During the Open Cape Conference this year, I did bring it up to the DEP as well as the Lieutenant Governor that it's great that we can now traverse it for pipes. And they did that for the offshore wind project, so they wouldn't spend so much money going around conservation land. So they opened it to all utilities. We just want them to go a little bit farther and say, wastewater and land are not 2 separate things. They can work together. Please allow us to do it.
Maybe you should do what they do in Vineyard Haven, which is to just release all that wastewater right next to the well. It's within the zone too.
There is
what we are drinking.
It's one of the things we were looking at in one of our areas is being not near a town well, but there are private wells in the area, and I'll get more into that in that area later on. It's not the first choice, but it doesn't necessarily mean it can't be done. It just has to be really proven through groundwater modeling. What's the impact going to be, and then can we mitigate it? And I'll touch upon that more with the Mashpee Wakeby project, because that was one of the big concerns that has been coming up.
Of course, it depends on how clean that final water
is. That's the very important part.
Clean, it can be put into the state forest.
Yes, and that's what we're looking at. So we are looking at predominantly right now cluster systems, not just the big pipe sewer, but taking a cluster subdivision and using part of that open space requirement. Say, hey, you know what? You're required to have this much open space, but we're also going to make you have X amount more open space, because on that space you're going to put a treatment facility that they can be responsible to install. What we're proposing then afterwards is once it's installed and it's running, the town can take it over for them, so that way that development doesn't get stuck with the ever increasing costs of operating that facility, because it never does get cheaper. So then we can incorporate with everybody. So by us doing our current plan, which like I said, I'll touch on more, we're laying out the model of what that could look like and the type of system we'd like to use. So that way, if we do take it over, it's not trying to learn 10 different types of systems. It's one system, one set of parts, one set of knowledge, same type of labs. And So that's what we're trying to do is just get everything set up so that when these systems do get in, we have the ability to take them over at not a great cost. We're also now readdressing, trying to follow the Vineyard's lead with the PRBs. I've been in contact with Jessica Thomas again just recently. We're trying to find ways to put it in there. When I first got to the town, they had a PRB plan, and I always joke and said it looked like the Atlantic Wall in World War II. They were just going to run it up and down every single coast, and that's just not cost effective. Jessica's approach about trying to target and pinpoint exactly where that groundwater comes out is the most important thing in the world, because you're not just wasting material or money. You're trying to get to that problem. So we've started speaking with her. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, we actually had our first
There's
meeting.
one being planned for the Vineyard right now.
There's actually one already installed in the Vineyard right now.
I know the one.
Yep,
Is it
and
the
that's
one
what-
talking about the bottom of Skiff Out?
Yes, yes.
Right. Of course, I just hope that never ever gets repeated.
Well, it's
Never gets repeated. Do you know that it requires 52 acres of farmland to grow the soybeans to make that amount of oil for just one fill?
correct, but
52 acres.
the good part about that is when you're dealing with a multi-phase project and you have a very and I'll show you on my maps that are coming up, but is there a way to start turning around the water quality now by getting rid of the legacy plume that's already in the ground, and then while trying to do all the stuff that's clean up, that period takes care of that legacy plume period. And so you can actually see the turnaround in the receiving waters much quicker, instead of waiting 20 years for it all to flush out, which when people are giving up money each year, they want to see results.
There are better ways to do it than with such a system. I'm very much opposed to that system. It is toxic. It is incredibly expensive. It requires immense amount of American good farmland to grow, and it just must be stopped.
Well, and that's a hurdle we'll come to if it comes up at our meetings. It's
unconscionable.
Our phase one. Our phase one system was our bread and butter. This was getting the core of the infrastructure, and this was our treatment plant. And when I came on board, it was a $54 million project. It had 3 contracts. There was our collection system north, which you can see in the map on the right is in green. Our collection system south, which is in orange. And then it was the treatment plant. The treatment plant was actually designed for all 5 phases of the project. So if you go to our plant, you'll see all the tanks in the ground, but they all don't have the equipment. What they did was they took the expensive portions, which is the concrete and the major structures, and just built them now, because it's never cheaper than it is today. So then as we move forward and we add more phases, it's just bringing in the MBR, which is a cartridge, and then 2 skid mounted pumps. We just buy the equipment, put it in line, some aerators, and we're now up and running, and we don't have to worry about pouring more concrete, getting more. It's all, the labor goes up every single year. So the town really took the large portion of that cost out of the equation for the future. I know when I was in Opelus, when I was there, it was like, oh, we're going to build more SBRs out in this direction. And now here we are 20 years later, and they're actually putting a whole new system, an MBR, in there. It's not that it's wrong. It's
Could you SBRM?
sequence and batch reactor, which was a type of technology, a sequence and batch reactor. Yeah. I always like to say it's a crock pot. Everything goes into one tank. It gets aerated. It settles out.
I know what the
Yep.
acronyms are.
An MBR, micro membrane bioreactor. It's basically like a filter. And so we suck the water through these filters, and it takes out a lot of the TDS and the particles. So it's 2 different technologies. MBR allows you to do more flow in a smaller area. So O+ is doing the right thing. You're able to maximize your current plant. But it's just funny how you had a planning design in your head 20 years ago. In 20 years, it doesn't come into fruition. Mashpee said, let's just build the tanks now. Now it's just a matter of buying the equipment. It keeps the cost down. And you're not ended up with multiple systems. So I thought it was good insight. Like I said, I didn't come up with that idea. It's what I walked into, and I thought it was brilliant. Because that's just a small part of it, just changing up skids. It's real easy. It also had 2 lift stations, and there was 340 connections for that first phase, we got approximately 3/4 of those connections already in place. We put a 90-day connection requirement, which is very aggressive. I was surprised and actually discouraged it when I got there, and they stuck to it. But I wasn't thinking about, you have a startup process, and that startup process could take years if you don't get the flow in right away. So with this 90-day connection requirement, it was allowing us to get right up through the startup process, through the DEP reviews, and we've just been pounding them out fast and making sure we do everything we can to support the homeowners and the contractors that are doing the work for them. Some of the key points here was only 10% of our nitrogen reduction with the Pompanesett Bay. It is the core of our system.
Only 10%.
This first phase was only 10% at 54 million.
And how much is the total cost for that one?
So that phase one was 54 million. Phase 1A, which we're just now completing, which is when they first put out the project, they came out with a dollar amount, and unfortunately couldn't, with inflation that happens, they weren't able to do the project, so they go back for more money. They borrowed, asked for 12 million more, which the town approved. It ended up becoming only 5.7. And so then this past year, I did an article to refund the town or to rescind the borrowing capacity of that money. There was a debate for a while we already approved, let's use it towards maybe adding more homes. I said, no, let's give it back to the taxpayers. They gave it to us. Let's give it back. We can always ask for more for what we need and be more transparent. And everybody agreed with it. And that's what we did. So we gave it back.
That's awesome.
Yep. It was, we added one more lift station, and that's the area you see in the map that's in blue. These are the areas that we're kind of filling in those gaps. And this one's only 99 connections, and it's an additional 3% of our nitrogen load for the phase one area. So ultimately came out to 13%. And it again piggybacks off that core of the infrastructure. Phase two, which was my first article that I put forward to the town, during the planning process, I had a couple of requirements I required of the engineering firm, GHD. I said, we will not go back and ask for more money like we did in phase one. It created a lot of confusion for people. And when I got there, they were asking me questions I couldn't even answer because I still wasn't fully up to speed of what happened and when. So I said, give me the worst case scenario. We're going to borrow the money. It's going to take time to design. You're going to have inflation. I want to, cover all that. And then we added a percentage to it to make sure. And when we just got our bids back, we're able to do the whole project. We were able to award all the alternates in the bid, and we stayed under the 96.1 million. And that was the goal. I don't think it's right to the taxpayers. To me, I always felt it was misleading when you say, I only need 5 million, and then come back, I actually need 2 more million more. Well, let's just ask for all front. The town manager was a little, actually, I remember if I said, wow, when he first heard it, and his eyes went big, and I was like, sir, that's what you asked for. And when we went to town meeting, I was so nervous. I had a stack of books in front of me with all my, information to reference, trying to be ready for every question that could possibly come up. And I got one question. And the question was, when are we going to do phase three? I was like, really, 96.1 million? And your question is, when are we going to do phase three? Great. So it just showed me that the town is very supportive of these projects. It's going to expand our collection system off of that base core. It's going to be a total of 6 contracts. We have the plant expansion portion. We have 6 pump stations that we're installing, additional pump stations, and then 4 linear contracts. It's 1,288 homes, and then 4 additional sand beds to our facility. This will bring our total reduction to actually 42% for the whole Pompanesett Bay. And we haven't even started our 20-year clock yet. So we're really ahead on our watershed permit when we finally submit it for approval, which has been a really good thing. And this is just some quick diagrams of it. I wonder if everybody can see my pointer or if I'm moving it around. So the map on the left is our north area. That's 2 contracts. You'll kind of see a piece of land, 2 lots separating left and right. That is kind of the dividing point between contracts 5 and 6. They abut against 2 of our freshwater bodies, Santuit Pond and Mashpee Pond. And it includes our downtown area. Or I shouldn't say downtown, our Main Street area. Kind of, I've learned in Mashpee, kind of downtown has kind of become the commons. But this is the traditional historic Main Street area of the town. It's actually our historic district. So we bring those on. And then on the right, that is the Pirates Cove area, Mashpee Neck Road. Large pieces of conservation land. Predominantly, it's all HOAs and private subdivisions. We had to do a lot of orders of takings and easements for this process. And we actually used an Oak Bluffs model for that most southern point of Mashpee Neck. That's called Pirates Cove. I really love the area. The roads are named like Cutlass, Musket Lane. It's very got that traditional pirate sound to it, but it's an HOA, and we're going to use the green box E1 systems where it's all tied back to a central sewer so we can minimize the electrical costs because there was a lot of old homes down there. And we were worried that a lot of these homes would have to upgrade their electrical service in order to support an E1 pump. So we decided, I was like, well, hey, and on the Vineyard in Oak Bluffs and the campgrounds, they have these green panels. All the power goes back to there. And if we ever have a major power outage, you just take a generator, plug it up to the green panel, you can pump down 40 homes, as opposed to running around to each individual house. That's time and money. And so we've now designed that into this project and we're using that model. I made one change. We're putting latch and relays in there so it's quicker for the operators to find the pumps that are in alarm quickly, save money that way. So it's been really a benefit. It also allowed us to eliminate 2 of our pump stations, which saved us roughly about $10 million from the original estimate. So that was also a huge benefit. We have many private treatment facilities in Mashpee. These are the main ones: Stratford Pond, Wampanoag Village, Southport, Mashpee Middle High School, Mashpee Commons, Windchime Point, South Cape Village, Willow Bend, and New Seabury. I'm just going to do a couple of quick pictures of the areas. These are basically smaller developments that they were required to put their own systems in there. A lot of them are getting older, but they're all, for the most part, meeting permit on a consistent basis. Most of them are year-round areas, except for a couple like the golf courses. Those are more seasonal use, so they do have their upsets during those seasonal changes. But we do have them in town, so it's when I get to my Mashpee Wakeby area, it's kind of, I think, helped us with the acceptance of the project that I'm trying to propose, or actually we're going to build. This is Wampanoag Village. This actually is the tribe's land, their housing area, and they actually just built one of their own systems on there. Little bullseye there, and it's that one is I want to say, I'm not even hypothetical because I can't remember. I sometimes get them all confused. I don't get to visit all the private facilities as much. It's kind of hard sometimes to get in with the private contractors that are operating them. We have Southport. That's a 55 and over community. And Mashpee Village. Mashpee Village has an amphidrome in it. We actually use it as a model for people to come out and see what a amphidrome looks like when it's installed and how minimal the impact is visually to everybody and the infrastructure and safety wise. Mashpee Middle High School, that is it's actually a really tiny SBR system. It's really tiny. I've never seen one so small. What we're ultimately going to do is we're probably going to turn that into a lift station and take that and bring it to our whatever treat, because we're actually going to build a new treatment plant on that side of town, and we're going to bring that to there and use that as a lift station. But currently it is its own treatment facility, and it takes on one of our affordable housing units. Then you have Mashpee Commons. Mashpee Commons actually has an MBR system itself. It's a very big system. It runs very efficiently and is, again, private contractors. South Cape and Windchime Point, again, 2 small developments that were required to put in their own treatment system.
Do they run these
So
themselves or?
every one of these systems are contract operated. So they have, I can't remember the name. There's a group of brothers that just kind of built their own business, and they've been taking over a lot of the businesses. Then you have Weston Sampson, who our town actually just contracted with. I don't think Veolia's got any of the private ones yet. But there's mainly 3 contracted ops firms that are really working in this area right now. These are our 2 bigger private systems. Willow Bend golf course, they really want us to take them over. Like I said, it's not a no. It's just we got to work through trying to do it. It's going to benefit the town because they have a lot more recharge and they're willing to use their irrigation for the golf course as our effluent. So it gets us more recharge. We would just have to require to upgrade their system to a little bit higher level of treatment as far as disinfection goes. But it does potentially give us a lot more recharge area and flexibility. And it does abut our current treatment system. That area to the left is actually that phase 1 area that we built in. So they're really abutting against each other. And New Seabury is unique because it's technically the only area of land that's outside the watersheds in Mashpee. It's right on the coast. The watersheds kind of just split left and right at their borders. They do have their treatment system down there, and they do have a lot of available effluent because they're not discharging into any of the watersheds. So it's It's a negotiation with them right now. They do have a lot of legal separation from the town that was done many years ago, but a lot of that's aging out now. So now everybody's starting to talk of, how can we incorporate them with the town and the town, and vice versa. And so we're beginning that process. The good part is everybody's willing to sit down and talk. And that's been the good thing.
now with the fertigation for the golf course, and you have to do more disinfection, that doesn't affect the grass at all with more disinfection? There's not.
It does not. Usually when we say disinfection, and most commonly we use is UV lighting. And it doesn't actually kill whatever we're trying to do. What it does is it kills a cell so it can't reproduce. So it's kind of like if somebody sneezes on you, it just won't reproduce. And once it gets in your body, you might get that little bit, but it dies out. It can't reproduce. So that's what UV really does. And yeah, but if we try to do any chemicals, that would be bad. Like if we try to do bleach or anything like that, sodium hypochlorite, that would be bad for it. So yeah, we've used it. So when I was on the potable water side, so it's but again, it's actually one of our better options for recharge, because that's really been the issue all over Cape Cod is what do we do with the water? To the point where we actually start talking, maybe doing a joint venture with the county and saying, hey, let's put some outfall pipes out there. It's a very expensive process for a single town to do, but if we all join together and let the county manage it and we basically pay them for whatever we discharge, that could be beneficial to everybody. And then whatever they charge us could be used for all the re-permitting costs. So it doesn't get rolled on to everybody. Let it just generate its own money and be revolving. So that was just mentioned a couple months ago. I put it out there and we're trying to vet through it right now.
So what is the reason why they would be not allowing it? I mean, this is really clean water.
So a lot of the issues has to do with vernal pools, white
Yeah.
cedar swamps.
Everybody on the Zoom can hear her question.
Oh, okay.
So if you could just repeat her question.
Okay.
Yep. Say it one more time.
Okay. It's so if the water is so clean, why is there such a reluctance to release it?
So the question was, if the water's so clean, why is there reluctance to release it? And it's not so much that they're worried about additional contamination. Like for instance, we're doing our discharge limit is 3 milligrams per liter, which is great. The problem is now you're putting more water in the ground. You're going to create what's called a mound,
Right.
wherever you're centrally discharging it. And that mound, like in Mashpee, we have so many ponds, rivers, vernal pools that are certified. And then we have white cedar. We actually happen to have, which fortunate, but unfortunately, because they came out with this as a later after they told us to put it in, white cedar swamps, you can't encroach upon those. And we have the largest white cedar swamp on Cape Cod. So it was like, great, another thing that's going to hold us up. So it's that mounding issue, because so when you put so much water into one area, that mound can then start encroaching, and they use a standard of 0.1 of a foot into that surface water. You can't do it. So it's really limited to those areas that we can recharge at. Yeah, and then the areas that we can usually are sitting in conservation land, Article 97, secured land. And so it's like, well, can't use that one, move on. And so the areas that are unrestricted, able to use are very minimal or too far away to really pipe to. It's the cost is just gets astronomical. Issues that we brought up to the DEP, and they assured us that they understand that the Cape and Islands are unique areas and require unique solutions, and they're taking it under advisement. I don't know what that means, but that's what I was told. One of the things we came up with is in the town of Mashpee, if people are familiar with the map, there's a large body of water in the middle. It's one of the Great Lakes on Cape Cod, and it's the Mashpee Wakeby Pond. And on the north of that is the town of Mashpee's, it's like an island because it's surrounded by Sandwich. You can't get there without going through Sandwich. So when they were doing the initial design of everything, they basically said, well, it's only 4% of the nitrogen load. It's like 3 point something, but ultimately round up 4%. They decide, well, we'll just exclude that because it's just, to get to it, you have to go out of town. Now you got to talk about MOUs. Then you got to talk about anybody you cross has a right to connect. So now Sandwich residents can connect at no cost to them, basically for the cost of the infrastructure. And it wasn't something people were really wanting to invest in. So when I came in there, I was trying to look at, okay, this is what the town's got planned. I don't want to mess with that. Is there anything I can do that can kind of help out? So I started looking at that area, and I started thinking, well, it's kind of a big cluster of houses, 211 homes. did some research, and we ultimately decided we actually had a piece of land up there, approximately 31 acres of open space that was due to a tax taking many years ago. So put some feelers out there, did some research, and immediately one of our residents who is big in water quality, he's also involved in a lot of water stuff. So I'm not going to mention his name just because I haven't talked to him beforehand to see if it's okay. But he does have a lot of connections in the DEP, and saying, what is this? What are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, I want to put this in. It's not enough, too much money for not enough results. Not a good idea. I was like, yeah, but what about phosphorus? And he went, oh, a 2-for-1. And I was like, yes. He did some numbers calculation. Next time I get a call from the town manager's office, give me an article now. And it was like, okay, I wasn't planning on doing it this fast, but let's go. And so we put together an article, $25.9 million. Again, that is a very conservative number. I like to be conservative. I'd rather give money back than ask for more money. It is a nitrogen and phosphorus removal facility. That pond, in the 2 years I've been there, has seen a massive decline in 2 years. They were going for years where they would, during the pond's turnover, they would have the cyanobacteria bloom. Usually, right around 4th of July weekend. It's kind of been the historical. This year, during both turnovers, it happened. Cyanobacteria bloom, pond gets shut down. I had some photos. I just didn't want to make the slide too long, but I mean, it was just a green sludge. It was really bad. People are seeing that. It's a very used body of water. There's a town beach there. There's a lot of boaters that go through there. And people thought it was a great idea. So we decided to go with an amphidrome system. That land, now, and I'll back up, it was a part of a cluster subdivision many years ago. They ultimately didn't pay taxes on the association, so the town took over the land and we just let it sit. Some people argued that it makes it automatic Article 97 because it's an open space and trail. After doing research, it does not trigger Article 97 because the town has never spent money on it. You just owned it. There is a town bylaw that says if we choose to dispose of the land, we want to get rid of it, it would then have the option first to go to conservation and let conservation take it on as protected land. We decided not to dispose of it. We're going to try to use it. It raised some concerns. So I reached out to some third-party nonprofit stewardship places to actually look at maybe we only want to use 7 out of 31 acres. The original subdivision was only required 15 acres. They added more to that because the topography of the land, it wasn't suitable to add more homes. So it was like, just put it in conservation. So what we decided to do was use less. So we never will encroach on that minimum requirements back in 1985. We're going to only use 7 acres and then just put the rest of the land in actual Article 97 conservation. And I looked at it as kind of keeping the town honest, that we can't come back later and say, hey, now we want to build this there, or now we want to build that there. This is what we want to do. We want to take your wastewater, not the rest of the towns, be able to treat it here, put it back in the ground right here, and then protect the other land. Speaking with the Native Land Conservancy, which is who I'm hoping is going to take it over. I met with them yesterday. We walked the land. They think it's a beautiful site, but it's a board that has to vote on it. The hope is that the Native Land Conservancy will take it over. That allows, Mashpee is the headquarters for the Wampanoag tribe in that area. And it's a way for them to be able to have their cultural access rights to this property while still maintaining the rights of the Mashpee residents to use this property. So it's both interests going in the same direction. They're also advising us on native plant species. So if we have to take down a tree to do the road, they're going to come out there with us and mark out, oh, leave that tree, or that tree can go. They're going to help us when we do the replantings after the construction of areas that we don't no longer need to use for the wastewater plant. They're going to help us make sure the proper species in there. And we're also looking at creating a meadowland, which is a habitat that is disappearing on the Cape and Islands. So we want to build a constructed meadowland to, the New England cottontail is actually an endangered species. We want to create an environment for the New England cottontail and use it as is. And then it's also now creates a field environment with native flowers and stuff, so people can go up there and walk and actually enjoy the property, as well as, putting trails into the wood area. So there's already there for motorcycles back in the day, and now people using to walk. So let's make them actually better accessible and not as dangerous for people to be able to walk those trails. So it's kind of been a collaboration that you don't need to have either just a land mentality or just a water conservation mentality. They can work together in a way that's beneficial for everybody. The system is an amphidrome, which is a subsurface treatment system. So all you're going to see is we have to have one small building to run the equipment. We happen to find on this piece of property a hill that we're going to build it below the hill. So when you're walking anywhere on the property, you shouldn't see the building. It's going to be behind a hill that's right on the property line to the road that's accessed. And then the rest of the treatment system, what you would see on the actual is a couple of hatches so you can access for testing and monitoring. And then we're going to do a subsurface leaching field. And that's where our meadowland will be. And so it's a way to kind of incorporate everything with the minimal amount of impact. It's a reliable system. The Amphidrome Plus can get below 5 milligrams per liter. It's considered an IA. They do make them for single family homes, and they can also make them as big as a couple of 100,000 homes, or excuse me, a couple of 100,000 gallons. So it can be sized appropriately. This is kind of the system we want to promote going for private developments in the future, because then if they want to hand it over to the town, I don't have to worry about having 10 different types of pumps and 10 different types of certifications how to operate it. We can share the parts, we can share chemicals, even if they're operators, if they stay private and they need support or questions, we can support them and help them in any way we can, because ultimately the goal is about protecting the environment.
Is this one private or is this one?
This one will be a town run system. And it's our model. And a lot of other towns in the Cape are dealing with the same recharge issues. And maybe the big plan is not the solution, because that's how you create the pond or the mound. So maybe these smaller treatment plants, especially if you're in a hard to reach area, running a pipe out there might not be cost effective. So maybe just bringing a smaller plant to them that is not intrusive. It's not the traditional big building with large tanks and dewatering systems in there that smell. It's the system we actually used was the Mashpee Village one. People came out, looked at it, and everybody's like, "Oh, I don't smell nothing." How much do they spend on odor control? I'm like, this one doesn't have an odor control, but we will, because I'm an operator. I know sometimes you have upsets. It'd be nice to be able to flick a switch and say, "Okay, nobody smells my upset." So we're adding one in there. So it was actually people got out there and they were very surprised. And then when they saw the leaching field was all on the ground, it looks like a giant field. They thought, "Oh, this is nothing." So we did go through a very extensive public outreach process for this project. We had a 4-part series, which I'm being told is now the model for any projects going forward. And what we did is we started out with the first meeting was a presentation. And we told everybody after that presentation that these meetings belong to them. Whatever topic they want to discuss, if they have a question or a suggestion or anything, let us know. If it's a question or you want to see something change, we would take that information, write it down, go back and vet it out, and in our next meeting, address the question. If we couldn't address it, why? If there was a reason why it's a no, or if we did, we did it. Or if it was a matter of we're still looking at it because you asked a very difficult question, it's going to take time to give you the answer. And we did that. And over the 4-part process, we were able to answer all the questions. I wish I could say everybody agreed. I learned a new term, and apparently I'm the only one in the world that didn't know the term, but a NIMBY. And everybody's, "Oh, they're just NIMBYs. They don't want it." Right. And I'm like, "What's a NIMBY?" And I was like, fine. I was like, I never even heard it that way. I was just said, they just don't want it in their backyard. And I probably heard it. I just never asked, what does that mean? So I heard it. And then I remember when I heard that term, and I'm like, I don't like that term. I don't think it's a fair term. To me, that's bullying somebody. "Oh, be quiet. You're a NIMBY. We're not going to listen to you." No, it's a valid term, because literally a week later, they're proposing this 30B project behind my house. And I'm going, "Not my backyard." And I went, "Oh my God, I should look in the mirror. I'm being a hypocrite." And so I told everybody that it's okay to have that feeling. That's a legit concern, especially if you don't understand what's being put back there. All I asked them to do was to work with us. If you don't like the color or the paint of the door, let's talk about it. Because if it does pass a town meeting, I want them to at least feel they had an input, and that we can build something that they can at least live with and not feel like they have to sell their home or they were railroaded. And again, I had some people say that I'm never changing their mind, but they gave me some great ideas. I actually had one person say, "You've really left me conflicted by the end." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to ask you for your vote, because that's not what this is about. It's about making sure you understand what you vote is between you and that ballot." I just asked that they be open-minded and participate. And people really did. I remember one of my adamant, they didn't want it in their backyard. People sat with me after a meeting, looking at a map with me, trying to figure out a different way of entering the property. And it was fun watching them kind of go through the same thing we were doing ourselves, and it made it enjoyable. And at the end, like I told everybody, I said, this was the best example of democracy I've ever seen. Everybody sat, talked, debated. We kept it civil. We tried to address everything we could. We couldn't address everything. And one of them, the big questions was the recharge. So the town of Sandwich, which abuts it, has private wells up there. Yes, and they're septic. So they were worried about the intrusion of the recharge because we would be within the 150 feet. So we had to explain to them that, and it took a lot to do it. And it wasn't until after all the meetings were done, I went and visited them at their property. They asked me to come up. They explained that we have to show, modeling that it would interfere, that where they're at is actually north and all the water goes south with the USGS. And they said, well, you're not allowed to encroach on it. DEP says you can't encroach on it. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Your property is only so big. Your well is in your front yard. Your well's in your backyard and your septic's in the front yard. So are you telling me right now, if your septic failed or your well failed, your house is no longer inhabitable? Is that what you're telling me? They said, well, no. I was like, you'd be able to sink a new well or put a new leaching field, but you would have to demonstrate through engineering that you would not contaminate your drinking well by doing this. I was like, it's the same concept. We have to demonstrate and we have to prove to the DEP that what we're doing is not impacting their well. And if it was something that would impact their well, we were prepared to actually even offer them to be going on our town water supply, because our town water supply abuts right there. And they said if they wanted to. And I'm confident that we're not going to get to that point, but we do have the ability to tie them in. And that it made them stop protesting the point. I won't say it made them totally buy into the project, but it's a project that a lot of us are very excited about, and to actually see the tribe come out and really support it publicly. And it was a town meeting where we all have demonstrated we do have the same goals and we can go the same direction, even being two separate entities. They proposed, they found a tree out there that might have to come down, and it's really large, and they don't like taking down the large trees, but they can find a use for it. And they said they would probably turn it and make it a dugout and set up an opportunity for people to come watch a traditional dugout being done. So I said, you do that, I'm going to be the first one there, because I find that fascinating. So it's been really a phenomenal project I'm very excited about. This next slide is just an example of what an amphidrome system is. Actually, on the island, Lagoon Ridge, they have an amphidrome system in there. I think that's a 21 unit subdivision. This is just a larger version, but this gives you an example of the system.
And may I ask, the price on the previous slide, it said it was 20. Could you go to the previous slide for a moment? I wanted to ask them. So 26 million, and it's 211 connections, and that comes to 123,000 per connection.
Okay, so we do have several. So we're using SR funding at 0% financing.
What is the cost of the system, regardless of where the money comes
Yes,
from?
yes.
That is about the most expensive one.
Yes. So like I said, we priced it conservatively. We expect it to come in way below, but there's some things on here that we do that so SRF doesn't pay for repaving road services. They allow you to do trench repair, and that's it. We added in the cost of curb to curb road restoration. So
this includes a new road.
yes.
How long?
This is miles of roads.
Miles of road.
Yes.
What is the cost of the systems? What I'm wondering.
So the amphidrome system, I don't have the exact breakdown of that. I wish I thought of that. I would have brought that. I don't have the exact system. A lot of this is the collection system. So one of the things the town discovered to get SRF reimbursement at 0% financing, if the town operates and installs the grinder pumps, they'll reimburse us for it. So normally that's a cost that would be the homeowner's responsibility, but the properties in that area, and I do believe I have a map later on that shows them. The properties in that area are very long. I'm talking probably 100+ yards. And that individual cost to the homeowner to connect would have been astronomical. So what we decided to do is, as a town, we would collaboratively put together money and bring the grinder pump closer to the homes, bring them downhill. In a lot of cases, we're actually going to 2 homes will be one on grinder pump to try to save as much money as we can. So it does increase the cost a little bit for the whole project, but this is being funded by the whole town. And to have that 0% financing, plus we get 25% forgiveness from the Cape Cod I always forget that fund.
Collaborative Water Trust.
Yeah, the trust. And so we get that 25% forgiveness, and then you have the WIF money and everything else. So it does bring the cost down, but we are doing a lot of extra things that we've kind of made a habit in the town, like curb to curb repaving, which is a lot of the cost that isn't SRF refundable.
So, yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, it was the true SRF cost is like 16 million. So
16,
yes,
say, not counting the road.
right, not counting the roads and everything else. Yeah, yep. And then, like I said, we're own, operate, and install those grinder pumps. Yep. So it's to me that was beneficial because the big thing for us is to own, operate, install. That reduces a lot of costs to individual homeowners. Like if you're a gravity connection, that's one cost. But then to add the E1 pump onto it, especially if they had to buy it, now you're adding another $3,500 to their cost that other homeowners would have. So the town decided we'll just take up that cost, and that way all they're responsible for is just getting to that chamber, and that keeps them in line with the gravity people. Kind of make it as fair as we can. And then some of it is just we're going to do the more expensive directional drilling, and so we can minimize the impact we have to people's homes and traffic. That is also one of our busiest corridors in town, and it's a very hilly road with turns. I don't know if anybody's ever driven on it, but it's a very hilly area, and it can be very dangerous. So we're looking to try to directional drill as much as we can as well, so we can minimize that impact. Does raise the cost, but I think saving everybody a little bit of aggravation is worth the cost. But the other key thing is if I told you it was just nitrogen, I wouldn't have thought the cost was justifiable. But trying to attack the phosphorus issue, and I remind everybody, we don't have a TMDL for it now. We will. It's coming. Do we want to wait 20 years of inflation before they give us the TMDL, or see if we can address it now? And we actually had SMAS come down, did a study. They identified where most of the phosphorus is coming from, and that's really what we're attacking. And Sandwich, this plan actually has an area laid out, so Sandwich can actually build their own treatment plant on this site. They would have to take back their recharge because that's the one thing we can't accommodate. But we did lay out an area if they choose to, so we can get the Sandwich homes that directly impact the pond as well. So Sandwich has just been sitting back to see how this pans out, see what the cost is. But they've been well informed of the process, and the town itself seems to be very intrigued by it. So I'm hopeful that in the next couple of years they'll start the same process to sewer their own areas. I know the residents in that area. I've received multiple phone calls. How do I get tied in? How do I get tied in? I always just remind them, go talk to their town. Encourage their town. I can't answer that question for them, but there is a lot of excitement for it. So the nitrogen and phosphorus is really what makes it a beneficial system. Again, the amphidrome. So this is actually the project area. This is what our locus map that we put into the town warrant article. You'll see at the upper right-hand corner, there's a road coming in. That comes from the Sandwich side. It's John Ewer Road. What you can't see is I took out the topography. It gets very busy with the topography. But you go up a hill, and then you see that little track area. That track area, it's less than an acre area land. That is our treatment system. The little square box you see up there is the building, and that's at the bottom of the hill. And so it opens up then through the little path through the woods. That brings you to our leaching area. That is the largest leaching area because we're trying to go for some, actually it was John Smith, who mentioned to me, he put in God, now I forgot the name, but it's this type of leaching system. It's designed so you engineer so you can actually put more water in per square foot in a subsurface leaching field, geomatrix system, and geomatrix. And so the DEP has never approved it for a large facility like this. We're asking for them to approve it. That'll allow us to shrink that field. We did look at wicks.
What is it?
It's an engineered leaching field. So
It's made of plastic or something?
No, what they do is instead of like you just dealing, my soils are sandy or my soils are this, what you do is you dig a trench, they put these molds in the ground temporarily. It's a steel mold. And then they fill each of these little chambers that are inside the mold with sand, gravel, sand, gravel, sand, gravel. So it allows for quicker percolation of the water and allows you to get more water per square foot. And they're generally approved for smaller systems, not one this size. We said, well, why can't it work this side? So we're actually trying to go through the process of getting them to approve it. We've looked at wicks as an option. We don't have enough distance to groundwater, so it wasn't an option. There's also these, can't remember what they're called, but they look almost like a cesspool, but it's basically designed to take that clean water and allow you to put more charge in the ground. That's another option. But what we decided to show to the town was in the land area that we wanted to use was designed that if we don't get approved for anything, we at least know we'll get the traditional leaching field, and that's what that land mass is. You'll see a dotted line that has like a little funny shape cutout by the leaching field around. Like I said, below our plant, if you kind of tilt it a little bit, so it goes from like 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, that is where Sandwich would have the opportunity to be able to put their own treatment system. If they decide not to, it just stays wooded area for people to walk through. And then, like I said, every other land outside of that is what we're going to put into Article 97 conservation land and have it restricted. So to the right of that area is an area called Notre Dame Road. That is a Article 97 conservation area. We were worried that we wouldn't be able to use that access from John Ewer Road, but then we found in the original deed for the conservation restriction, they did allow the road use to be maintained and accessible for anybody to use, even though it's in a conservation area. So that's how we decided to make our entrance into the area. There's a vernal pool right there, so we're making sure we stay outside the buffers of the vernal pool. That one is certified. And then we have a drainage area. That area is very difficult. It's the topography is insane. There's kettle holes there that are just like deep, 60-foot climbs to the rim, and almost perfectly round. I was like, are you sure it's kettle or is it a meteor that hit here a million years ago? Because it's perfectly round, but it's amazing. With some white cedars in there, birch. It's a nice area. But that's just a close-up view of the specific treatment area and how we plan on laying it out. I guess that's pretty much it.
Wow,
That was a lot of information. Thank
It
you so
is.
much.
I know you told me an hour, so I was like, all right, how can I get this in there and leave time for questions? I will say we are looking at the PRB barriers, and mainly because we have a legacy plume that we would like to remove. Our Mashpee River is very much in need of help, and we don't want to wait 20 years for it all to work its way through. If we can start attacking it now and allow shellfish to go, it could be a temporary solution while we're putting in the permanent solution. We are looking at our phase 3. We have projected costs at about $130 million. That'll be a treatment plant and a new collection system. That we have to put. What's that?
Where would that be?
That would be in the west side of town. So if you ever look at the Mashpee map and you look at 151 and how it goes to the Rotary, the left side of town, closest to Falmouth and MacArthur Boulevard, that side of town is the area we're going to try to address. That's our next phase. Again, the question was always asked, why don't you bring it back to the plant? Well, the miles it would take to get back there because the conservation land requires us going up and around and down and everything else like that. It's cheaper to actually build a treatment facility out on that side of town. So we're trying to identify areas for that and recharge. And that's been the most difficult part is the recharge. So we got some areas that actually in the middle of the conservation land, the Air Force had a PFAS site, cleanup site, and they're now done using that site. So they offered it to us as a site to use.
Awesome.
But we're not the Air Force, so we're worried that if we try to use that site on truly conservation land, that we would get a lot of pushback. So we're feeling it out legally wise, but it's great because it already does have 3-phase power out there. So we wouldn't have to do any more destruction. It already has reinforced roads from when they brought all their equipment out there, so we wouldn't have to disturb that. But in our conservation department is all about it, but they're not the final say. The taxpayers are. So we really have to look at it. So there are options. It's really, really tricky for us to deal with. And that area also what makes it difficult, and I forgot to mention this, the base just came out with a new map of the PFAS plume, suspected and confirmed. And it pretty much covers all of Western Mashpee is in a PFAS plume. And so the state doesn't allow additional recharge for at least the base. And we're sure we're going to butt into it because hydraulically, they don't want us to put more water in the ground and maybe move the plume faster than it can be dealt with. So it creates a lot of issues. I mean, it's like when you think you have a solution, you run into something like that. And like I said, Sandwich's whole plan was to go to that base, and their plan got blown up. Now, I would say that the base is not we have a monthly group that we have. It's the operators on the Cape, the superintendents and stuff. And Matt Kennedy, whose company Converge, got the contract for the base. That was kind of a letdown for them because that was kind of their whole business model. Is they were going to get these towns to bring in more flow and they can handle it. And it's kind of got them too. So we started talking about my next biggest concern, which is what do we do with the solids? You know, everybody's trying to kick Massachusetts out of it because of the PFAS and everything like that. So I've been mentioning and we've been encouraging him to maybe change their business plan or their business model and look at doing a regional sludge handling facility.
Looking at what you said.
Regional solids handling facility. So they'd be able to take the sludge, like, for example, grease, which we do have a lot of in the summertime on Cape Cod and the islands, that can be turned into biodiesel. There's technology out there that can do 100% use of that grease, gasification, methane. So not only would their business make money, you know, getting the sludge, but they can also generate money with the byproduct that they can produce. They also have rail capabilities. So anything that they can't can be shipped out west where it can maybe be used for, you know, mulch and everything else like that. So there's ground applications, but right now trucking it too expensive for individual towns, taking it to Maine, taking it to New York, you know, Rhode Island's doing everything they can to kick us out. They just don't want it. So here's an opportunity. I mentioned to Matt, I was like, you build this, we will come. And the company he hired that runs their treatment plant, they actually just did this down in the Florida Panhandle area. They created a regional solid handling facility, and he told Matt, yeah, we're making money hand over fist. So, you know, at the end of the day, we just told Matt that as towns, we're not going to come up with their solution, but if they're willing to do this and they need help, we're willing to give them letters saying, hey, you need to approve this permit. You need to allow this. You need to do things. We support this because we're going to need it. That's our biggest concern is what do we do with those solids? Next to recharge, solids. What do we do with them?
Yeah.
Right.
Would this be a good time for me to say a little something?
I think we're gonna do questions first,
Do questions first.
Yeah, okay.
because,
I hope I can
so
hear
does
it.
anyone have any questions? I'm not, John? Let me see. Just turn your mic on and, ask your question. If you have one. I know there's a lot of information.
That was a lot.
It was. I was like, okay, 1 hour, I can do it.
And your slide, you have no problem with giving the slides to me?
Absolutely no problems.
There we go, John. John raised his hand.
Go ahead, John.
Thanks.
Yes.
Incredibly awe-inspiring presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you just come and perpetrate this for all the vineyard, please? I couldn't. I'm glad it's being recorded because I, of course, couldn't catch all the details. But at one point, I think must be Anna Edie asked a question about what the individual cost of connection is. And am I right in thinking that you said it was 16,000?
No, so actually right now for the individual homeowners, their actual
Yep.
cost to connect to the system is running between 4 to 15,000, depending on, obviously there's a lot of
Wow.
factors, landscaping on the property. But that's the individual homeowner's cost to connect.
Right.
We're seeing an average of about $6,000 to $7,000 average. That
Incredible.
also includes the abandonment of the old septic system.
Because I guess what I was wondering is whether anybody had costed out this versus, speaking of John Smith, Clean Twos technology that I know from talking to John, it's been a couple of years now that he also had developed something that does remove phosphorus, though I don't think it's very far along. That's an incredible price, obviously much, much cheaper than doing either from the beginning
Well,
or after the fact.
Individual systems, yeah.
So, I mean, so one of the things I can sit there and say is I'm not one of those big pipe sewer guys that don't believe IAs are an option. They absolutely are. I would say cost is very dependent, just like sewer connections. Actually, the main reason why I sold my house and left this island is because I had to put in an IA system, and my cost came in at $79,500, not including the annual cost to test and monitor.
How much for that?
it runs anywhere between like 900 to 1,200 a year is what we're seeing on average
Okay.
most places. And that's if you don't have any issues. And if you have a motor that goes down, now you have time and material. 79,500. I sold my house as is. It cost me a little, quite a bit of money on my final sale. But and it created some complications, but ultimately that's why I left, because I just could not afford that. I wasn't going to do 1/5 of my mortgage to pay for a septic that's only going to last me maybe 20 years, if I'm lucky, and if no new regulations come. But with phosphorus, there is also currently no generally approved system.
Okay.
But I do believe in IA systems because there is a need for them. Not everything can be done by big pipe sewer. Not everything can be done by IA systems. I know in Mashpee, one of the reasons why it didn't become a big portion of it, because it was heavily talked about like everywhere else, is because IAs did not remove enough nitrogen to meet our TMDL. If we did every single home 100%, we still would have had to put some sort of sewering or other nitrogen reducing system in there. But I've also been the one that, even though they decided to go big pipe sewering, has said, no, actually IAs, and it doesn't necessarily have to be individual homes. These cluster systems are basically larger IA systems. They absolutely do have a place.
Something's messing with your connection there, folks.
What's that?
Jared, you're frozen.
Oh, I froze? You look frozen to me, Malcolm.
But we could hear you.
Okay, cool. Now we're moving. So,
Okay.
there is a place for everything. I don't believe in just big pipe sewering. Don't let my colleagues hear that. They think I'm a traitor, but no, everything has an appropriate place. I mean, even the type of low pressure systems, Orenco. Personally, I think for our area it wasn't appropriate. I think if I was in an area with a lot of granite, in the ground, Orenco, it's much more shallower. Absolutely would have been appropriate for us. We ultimately in the bid end up with E1. We did have to bid it out as well. Doesn't mean it's not a good system. It just for our specific needs. And that's what I keep trying to press upon. It's an adaptive plan in our town. Every time somebody well, the 2015 year plan says this. Yep. And it's going to adapt. It says it right in there also that it's an adaptive plan. New technologies will come out. More things will get generally approved. We will learn more. Different sciences will come out. We might find a way to make shellfish, more effective. I don't know. I leave that to the smart people. I like to just work at looking at every option and seeing how could it fit in at every single phase. Don't just come up with a solution and stick with it, because a lot of times that ends up being the bad and more expensive option in the end.
Drew has a question.
Yep.
Drew, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hey Jared, Drew
Hey.
from Tisbury. We met right before you headed out, Maura. I took over from Maura. Did I hear correctly that you said you got SRF funding for a cluster system?
Yes. Yes, we did.
So we're looking into how to manage those. Were you allowed to like put that under the blanket of your sewer?
Yes.
Like that was allowed into your enterprise fund? You're allowed to use the same type of funding for that cluster system?
Yes, because we're own operating and installing the system as a town. SRF is allowing it to basically they call it basically a treatment plant, but it's a much smaller, very targeted area that we're doing. So it is SRF fundable. And we also learned that the individual low pressure pumps, as long as the town operates, installs those pumps, they will also fund that.
Okay,
Yep.
good to
It's
know.
we're really stretching the limits with the SRF, because we're really worried, because next year there was proposed 90% cut in SRF funding next year. So from the federal government. So, we're trying to get as much as we can done using the SRF. Any more questions?
I've got a follow-up.
Sure.
I'm very interested to hear that it's an adaptive plan, and I'm familiar with this from management of large protected areas and so on outside the states. But one of the issues about adaptive plans is how is it explicitly structured within the plan for the new science to be monitored and taken into account. so that actually the opportunity for adaptation occurs,
Yep.
as opposed to things blithely sailing ahead without any investment in making sure that that it's all up to date.
Well, I would say the most important part is those that are involved in the planning, like myself. Um, we have to encourage because the engineers will go with what's easy for them or what they've traditionally done. It's most cost effective. So it's up to me to ensure that they are looking at the other options. But the other good thing is the state has the notice of project change process. So every time we do a new project and ask for more money, we have to show and demonstrate that we've looked at this option, this option, this option. Now, they obviously are not going to dive into the details. Again, that falls back on us, the people in the town, the elected board members, the sewer committee, making sure, well, did you look at this? Did you look at this? Because they're the ones that are ultimately going to sign off on this. So that's what I do is I always, as Shirley's point, I don't sleep because I'm always like, well, what if? What if? What if? And I don't believe when everybody tells you no, and Mike, who I work with at Tisbury, probably tell you, I don't believe in the no is the final answer. What you're telling me is just right now with what I proposed can't be done. We can find a way to yes. It's just how creative can we be, and how much are we willing to? Because it might not be cost effective. We can get there, but ultimately it might not be cost effective. But I don't believe in the word no. I think it's too easy of a word to use for people. So.
And I don't want to get in anybody else's way, but forgive me, I don't know enough about the geomorphology of Mashpee and so on. But I mean, when you describe a kettle and 60 feet to get to the top, I assume that you're dealing with moraine, and I'm wondering how you've determined hydrologically where groundwater is going in that kind of area. It was obviously, as you know, here in the outwash plain, it's dead easy, but
So like some of them, like the vernal pools, those are kind of obvious and they've been certified. We then even the ones that are, I can't remember the term, but they're not certified, but we're high probability they are true vernal pools. We don't go into those either. But we use the current USGS groundwater model, and then what we have to do is we have to do borings to verify depth to groundwater and so on and so forth. So then we're actually in the process of doing our borings right now to verify all that information. Because that will be part of the permitting process when we do our recharge and everything.
got it. Thanks.
Yep.
You just say Emma had a question?
Yes.
Emma, do you have a question?
Oh, I was actually just looking for the reaction button because as Jared was saying that you don't believe in no, just kind of means you don't like what I said right now. We can get to yes. I wanted to say that I liked that strategy.
Yes. Just got to figure out how to get there. And I always joke, and some people, I always say I have a PhD, a plain high school diploma. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm very creative. Yeah, I'm just very creative. I don't say that to try to take away from anybody's hard work and getting the degrees. What I'm trying to say is, I like to admit I'm not the smartest guy in the room at all. I'm very creative. I'm artsy, So I like to just throw things against the wall. I leave it up to the smart people. Tell me, yeah, that works. Or no, dude, you're way going the wrong direction. Great, let me know. Leave that to the smart people. Some people have a habit of getting, human nature. You get used to what you're doing, and that's what you do. And sometimes you don't think to look outside the area. Oh, it can't do that,
But you
Well,
have an
can
open
you?
mind.
Yes, and it's all about being open. I don't sit there and say that my solution is the right solution. I'm just throwing an idea out there. I want everybody else to attack it and vet it because it might not be the right one the way I put it, but by just a few questions, we might make it the right solution. And there was a community I went to in Outer Cape. I won't say their name because now we're in a public meeting, but I was invited to come out and speak to another town out in the Outer Cape. And they asked me, what do you recommend? I'm not here to recommend anything. What I'm here to tell is you need to sit down, figure it out, pick something and go because the clock is ticking on our timelines. And whatever solution I don't think is going to be wrong. It's just you got to make a solution. You got to go in a direction. It's up to the town though, their characteristics. Are you a town that likes that, individualized and very spread out? Fine, great, go with it. I think if you can meet your goals, go with it. If you want to just do big sewer and try to knock out as many as you can all at once and keep it easy, great, do that too. But it's their choice. Mashpee is right now doing big pipes, but we are well recognizing the fact that we're going to have to look at clusters and individual IAs. And people that do have IAs, we've already made a policy. If you have one in the ground and the sewer comes through, we're not going to make you abandon your IA after you spend all that money. You can continue to use it until it fails. And if it never fails, then great, you're lucky, because it still does reduce the load. It's good. So, Some people just don't want to wait for the sewer. They want to do something now. Good, do it,
Nice.
and we'll support it.
Yeah, that's important.
Yep.
That's a
'Cause
huge investment.
it's a very huge investment. I know me, being a guy that lived in Martha's Vineyard, I just was like, oh my God, I don't make enough money to survive here all the time trying to figure out and put kids through hockey and everything else. It was like, how do I do this? I'd have been really upset if I put a system in there and they said, oh, by the way, sewer just came through. You're gonna have to get off of that now.
Right. That's another phrase.
Yeah.
Where I am.
Yep. So we said, let's make it a policy,
Well, this
Okay,
is-
does anyone else have a question, or Anna wanted to give us like a preview, short clip
very
um
brief.
brief of one of her ideas? I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I may in closing real quick.
But is
Just-
there any
if I-
other question before we
Yeah.
move on?
I'll just say in closing, if anybody's in the Mashpee area, my office is the at the town hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Please come by anytime. I love showing off the new facility, walking people around, and just showing what we're doing. It's every day I learn something new in that area. It's very fascinating, and it's a very much open door policy there when it comes to wastewater. So I've given many tours of the area, and I'd love to take anybody from the Vineyard
Oh,
if
fantastic.
you want to come on, check it out.
I was thinking of that when I was when you were talking. I was like, I want to see that one.
Yep, by all means, come on by. I love showing it off.
Great.
Thank
Thanks
you,
so
Jared.
Thanks,
much.
Jared.
Great. That was fantastic.
Yay.
Thank you.
I hope you stay.
Oh yeah, I'll hang
You're
around.
good. You don't have to run to
Clean
the
it up.
And you have flexibility and able to bring in
No, I
the
gotta go.
for input.
Sorry.
It's really what we need.
Yes.
Bravo, Jared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was talking to Jared and I was like, wow, you've got some really great ideas going on. And I think that the island would love to hear it. So I
Thank
love
you.
my little head in the corner of the I kind of come and go.
Me too.
Sorry. Are you coming in, or do you want me to share? Are you onto the Zoom?
I am, this is where I'm at. I don't know where to go to.
Okay, can you go to the email and join the Zoom, and I can make you a co-host
And the email would be
that I sent you.
that you did send me before, or that you're
Yes.
about to send me.
I can send you also.
Yeah, whichever is quickest, because I'm very slow at this stuff. Put up Sherry, so what's that? Do you, I don't know. I mean, I hate these little things. What's that all of a sudden? And what am I supposed to do?
I don't
I
know.
mean, it's like, what?
Okay, let me just send you a new one real quickly. Forward.
I mean, I can't even put in a request to have you show, because I don't know what to do with this thing.
Okay, I
wanna
just
ju-
sent you an email and you will get the Zoom link.
You know what I mean? I can't even search because that thing is there, but I don't know what to do with it in order to get rid of it. I'm trying, it's not coming in.
Are you on our internet? Personal hotspot available.
I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
do
not-
you mind if I
Yeah,
get in?
because I see my thing is not on, so maybe that means something.
Yes, you don't have
When I do
Wi-Fi.
this, when this machine, when I don't know what to do, I just get
I've had the same problem.
instant anxiety attack. It's dreadful. And not everything done. And it's so toxic to have an anxiety attack, but this machine is going to kill me.
AI is going to kill all of us.
Saw the
Yeah.
Terminator.
Yep. Mhm. Let me go back to your emails.
Mail?
Sorry. Is this touchscreen?
No, I just use. You want the mail?
Yeah. There I am.
Okay. And then,
Oops, sorry, I'm using a
Yeah.
touchscreen. I'm not used to a touchscreen. Okay, now you are going to join my Zoom. We're almost there.
oh, what's that? Modulating.
Now, there I am. Okay, and you're gonna join.
Thank you.
Sure.
Glad you know how to do it.
The host will let you in.
And then,
Do with the. Here I am. Okay, you are admitted and I will give you host you are now a co-host. So now you can share your screen. You're going to be okay and share. And where's your presentation?
well,
Any of those?
it's. Yeah. I just. Can I get
Yeah.
into? I mean, I had it up. So I don't know if I can get into, what is it called? What is that, Firefox? See, I just completely lose my mind with this, you know?
It's okay. We'll get it.
I mean, I had it on my screen, so
Mhm.
it will still be on the screen. It was in, no, it was in PowerPoint. It was in PowerPoint, which is right there.
Right there.
There it is.
There it is. Okay.
So in other words, that's the only picture.
Oh.
This is the one.
I know, but I've got to pull it up from here. Let me. Ta-da!
Oh, good Lord.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're doing it, sweetie.
Just go for it with that. Okay. We are good. Whew. Sorry about
That's
that.
the image of, yeah, okay.
We're just
So-
gonna go with that.
Dear Jared. Okay, you're seeing it over there. Okay. See if I can breathe. So I don't need to go through the other slides. I can go back one slide just to show you that it's the system that I'm going to show you. It does 96 to 99% nitrogen reduction. These are all
People here, Anna,
Pardon me?
I'm just wondering if they can all.
John, can you hear Anna?
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Yep, you can move.
Now, can you hear John?
He's got his mic silenced.
Give me a
Oh,
thumbs up.
sorry. Yes, I can hear.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Terrific.
And I was just wondering, Sherry,
So-
maybe you could help so we only see the slide rather than
Yeah,
the whole
The
screen.
slide is all you need to see.
Hey, what is the
And-
slideshow?
Hmm?
Close the slideshow.
Oops, sorry.
But that's okay. You can see the others too. You've seen some of the others before.
We can see it more easily if all we see is the slide. If we just get the presentation. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie. Oh. Okay, so now how do I get back to seeing my slideshow so I know what to do? It's always one more thing.
Mhm.
P, do you want to? No, no, you have to do it here. And you want PowerPoint right there. Are you trying to? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. All right, so
You got this.
yeah,
Take a breath.
if I know how to advance. Okay, let's take a look at this one then. I did a flush toilet. It flushed it straight into a compost bin next to my house. There you see the inside of the compost bin. There you see it's coming straight from the flush toilet, no macerator or anything. Just at the end of the day, whatever you flush down looks like that to the right-hand picture, okay? You get that? It's 1 day, less than 1 day. And the plants that are, and it's this one, it's the one that is doing 95 to 99% reduction. This is the green filter on the bottom. Those plants are the second form of the filter plants. And so let's see, how do I now? No, what? How do I advance? I thought I would be like that, like down perhaps. No, what? Oh, okay. I don't know what you did, but you
Just
might have to
clicked
do it
on that.
again. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not a math user.
So here again, this is the testing sheet for that particular system that you just saw, okay? Now, okay, here we go. So this is what I want to do. The simplest of all is the second one. It's down on the bottom. The one that is on the top is what I was going to do to retrofit my Title V septic system. But then the other day, and I'm one of those people too, Jared, that just like get ideas. It's just like, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. So I put, instead of going, I'm in the lower one here, version 2. It goes into the sewer pipe in the basement, makes a T there. So that instead of the sewage going straight into the pipe that is shown in white and just ends in nothing, but actually ends up in the sewer system, in the septic tank, I cut a T. I haven't done it yet, but this is what I want to do. Cut a T and it goes into a small pump chamber. And I'm talking about a small pump chamber. It's about like this by this by this. It's called a macerating pump. And it is often installed right after a toilet, or if you have a basement toilet, you can put it. It costs about $300. And it would then pump, it would macerate what is flushed down the toilet, only the toilet. And then you follow the red line and the arrow, and it goes into the first filter, which is the brown filter, consisting of 4 barrels with wood chips in them. And they will look just like you saw in the compost box on my home. Then it drains into, that one is lined, so nothing goes into the ground anywhere at all so far. It drains into another of these pump chambers and is then pumped up into a green filter, which also has a bunch of wood chips in it. I mean, did I say that the contents of this is wood chips? It's the first wood chips filter that existed anywhere, is what this is. I'm the one who came up with that idea in 95. And so then it is the green filter, and then that which is also lined, and then it's the dispersal filter, which of course has a lot of plants in it. So this system, I can offer that. First of all, my plan is to build it, completely build it, and then invite people over to come and see. This is how it's built. This is how it's going to work. And then invite the Board of Health and whoever else to look at it, and then to cut the pipe, put in the T, so that it goes into the new tank instead of straight into the septic tank. And if it were that pump in the basement would ever fail, then of course the water will rise in that tank, and that pipe will be full. And what will then happen is it will then automatically revert to the pipe that goes into the existing septic tank and the existing Title V septic system. So this has not gone through. I mean, I went through the DEP years ago, 98. That was the first pilot program for wood chip systems. And I got phenomenal results, even on the Black Dog Tavern, even though that was then plugged up with grease. And I was part of the program, but I saw soon that it was going to end up costing at least $100,000 and take 2 years before there was any sort of permit. So I backed out of it because I could nowhere near ever afford that. And I couldn't get investors either because it wasn't patented. I refused to patent my system. It's, yes, you have to do it exactly right, and nobody's going to be able to just do it on their own. But I want to, and I want to install these systems. They were going to cost $20,000 versus $79,000 we heard for a hookup for the sewer, or hookup for this amphidrome, perhaps it was. And we heard Jared say that his system here for an AI system was going to be $79,000. A neighbor of mine, brand new house, 3-bedroom house, $70,000. A 1-bedroom IA system on the lagoon, $85,000. This system is going to cost $20,000. It has not gone through, it has not got a DEP permit, but I am hoping for a groundswell of people who are faced like you were with $79,000 and had to leave the island in order to, because you couldn't afford that. Who can afford that? And so I'm sorry for being so upset. As I said, the computer problems just completely throws me into a anxiety attack tizzy. So I'm sounding very crazy, I'm sure. But if you look at that system, anybody can understand the pure simplicity of it. It's all local products except for the PVC pipes. And they all need to be Schedule 40 PVC pipes so they never get crushed. And this is the silver bullet, I must say. This is, and I dare say that the price I'm estimating now, and I've counted everything, I haven't counted the screws and the fittings and stuff. And, but I would dare say that it will be well under $20,000. No machines are required. It's hand digging of everything because it's very shallow. It's very, there's a little bit of carpentry for the, it's a vermin-proof shed for the brown filter. The green filter is all vermin-proof, also being completely surrounded by 1/2-inch wire netting. And the top is also covered with netting. So there's no way that they can get in there. So the big question is, how can we get this one? First of all, how can I get a permit to put this in? It needs to have a local pilot program permit run by local people and tested locally. All you have to test for really is the nitrogen. Very simple. You take it before the brown filter, and then you take after the green filter. One will say approximately maybe 80 parts per million nitrogen, and at the end it will say maybe 2 parts per million. That if you looked at the chart before, that tells you exactly what it was. And so from a public health standpoint, is there anything in here that looks threatening? We have a system that will be very easy for people to afford. And I also have in mind a revolving loan fund So nobody would have to pay anything at all. If, it's the annual maintenance would be less than 1,000. It will mean the company that puts it in, and there probably will be several companies on the island, and I will oversee it all until it all runs perfectly, because I'm not going to allow anything to fail. And so I have all this many years of experience, like, what is it, 30 years of experience or something that I've been doing this. What are you doing dealing with wastewater? I've heard that more and more, many times. Well, I happen to be fascinated with it. I came across this solution very early in the game, like in the late 70s. And then, so let's see. So it will need a groundswell of people going to the Board of Health. Well, the Board of Health, of course, they're wonderful people in the Board of Health. Like, where did he go?
True. Malcolm?
Malcolm, yeah. Malcolm, for instance. I expect him to have open mind, and so I want people to see the obviousness of letting me put the system in and then monitor the heck out of it. The Board of Health, DP, whatever, can come anytime and check on it. Is there any overflow? Is there any bugs? Is there any fragrance? Any odors? Is there anything that would be the slightest chance of public health risk? So let me just end there and see what kind of reactions anybody's getting.
Well, I think it's crazy that they won't let you try this. I really
It's
do.
what? It's what?
It's crazy.
Crazy?
Yeah, I mean, you've been working on this for so long.
Yeah.
You should be able to try it.
Yes, of course.
The
Right.
only way we're
Thank
gonna,
you.
the only way we're gonna move forward is people,
Yeah.
just like Jared said, you gotta try things. If it
Yes.
doesn't work, then we
Yeah.
step back. But
And we have to look at the track record of DEP.
right,
Have
What
you,
have they done for us?
have you talked to the test center yet?
Pardon me?
Have you talked to the test center yet over at the base?
The only times that I talk with them is that, yeah, come on over. But it's 100,000 minimum and 2 years. I'm not ever going to do that, you see, never. And I need to be looking at it every day. How are you doing there? Excellent, fine, all right. How the plant's doing? A little bit trimming here. I cannot have it there. It's not possible. This is a living thing.
Well, I believe it's actually going to be, it's a requirement.
Yes, I know.
If you want to get generally approved ever.
Yeah, I know it is.
It's a requirement.
I know, but that is what we have to change. And so, there is a very interesting, and I wish Malcolm was still there, as Board of Health. There is a very interesting here it is. It says that the powers, it's actually the Board of Health, the local boards of health who are in charge, who have the responsibility, the ultimate responsibility of protecting public health and the environment and the ponds and everything. It says right there in the law, and it's all, you can look it up. It's hard to read. It's very, very, very convoluted English, of course. But it says very clearly that the ultimate responsibility for the public health and the protection of the ponds and the environment lies with the local boards of health. And they have the right to, yes, they have to follow Title V, yes, they have to follow that, or better. I think it's in the bottom paragraph that it says that they can require stricter regulations, but not do it less strict than Title V. That's how it reads. So we need a lawyer. We need a lawyer to look at these things here and tell us, does it say what I think it says, or does it not say? So in my interpretation, the local boards of health have higher authority than DEP.
How would you change out you're putting sewage into the raw sewage into the container?
Yeah.
How would you clean out the bottom part of it without mixing in the fresh raw sewage?
Okay.
Because that would be a major
Okay.
problem.
Well, first of all, of course,
Like I know
I-
with the compost units, they kind of shake out and
yeah, no,
the
this is,
old stuff goes down and
yeah, nothing like that.
The raw
Nothing,
stuff.
nothing like that. These are barrels, 32-gallon barrels, perforated at the bottom and also at the sides to maximize aeration, because it's a completely aerobic system from the beginning to the end. And the nitrogen is reduced because it's absorbed by the wood chips and all the microbes, and literally is transformed into earthworms. And because it's their food that makes them grow and reproduce by the millions. And so there is nothing that will, if I notice that there's no drainage, I mean, it's that there's standing water in it, then I would turn that one off and see, okay, what's going on here? I would just let that one rest. And, if the water is not draining down, then it is plugged up. But that was not my experience with the one that I had on my house. It just drained down very quickly because of the wood chips. And so then at the, probably in my system of my house, I never had to change it. It just kept getting the volume, getting smaller and smaller, just kind of liquefying and draining into the drainage chamber underneath it and going into the pump that then took it to the green filter. So I had this system for many, many years, to 2020, 1995 to 2018. In 2018, I sold my farm, and they put in a standard septic system. So would you reach for that? Otherwise, it's going to run. They had it with us. So, in other words, I would expect that after a year or so, I mean, I don't know. As I said, it was 95 to 2018. How many years is that? It's 33 years, I believe it was. It never needed changing. Just once in a while, I would just put in another 5-gallon bucket of wood chips. That's all I ever had to do to it. And so in the end, there may be no compost even, because it might all have liquefied and been traveling to the green filter and then into the, what I would like to do is a little wetland, or a little sand filter or something like that for the final dispersal. So we need a lawyer to interpret this law. First of all, of course, the law is the Federal Clean Water Act. That's the law, right? And that was instituted in 1972. And DEP has been requiring Title V since 1995. And 1995 has always been, and still has always been, completely against the law. It's in total violation of the Clean Water Act, because it releases all this stuff, all the nitrogen that has been destroying our ponds ever since. Title V was disastrous for our ponds because it causes much more nitrogen leaching than septic systems do. And the newer Title V's with the leach pits, the newer Title V septic system is, the more nitrogen pollution it causes. Very hard for people to understand, but that is the absolute total fact. And let's see, what else can I say? Oh, yes. So,
yeah, Title V was changed for the biologicals, not nitrogen.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
and they knew from the beginning that
Right.
this was going to release much more nitrogen than the cesspools. They knew that. How do I know that they knew that from the beginning? Because almost right away, like certainly within a year, they started the nitrogen reduction program in order to reduce the nitrogen from all these Title V septic systems. So that way we know that they knew that the nitrogen was going to destroy our ponds. I have many quotes of them saying so, often by the consultants that came over here in order to, to tell us to do something about it. So DEP it runs on campaign contributions and benefits and from the sewage company, including the engineers. It's the same story with all corporations. They get the regulators to make the rules and regulations that will benefit the sewage industry. So in my mind, they are the work. They've pulled hundreds of millions of dollars out of the Vineyard ever since '95. Hundreds of millions. In my book, I say exactly how much. I should have brought my book, of course. Would like to give it to you, of course. But go to my website, sulviva.com. Okay. And so what was I going to say there? Yeah, I consider them absolutely, totally corrupt. Corrupt.
But they are the Massachusetts law.
Yes, but they are corrupt. And we must stand up for our rights to protect our water and our ponds. They are so corrupt that, a lawyer seems to say, well, we have a class action suit here, whatever it is. But
If you can find a lawyer to do that, then
what?
If you could find a lawyer to do
Well, it's not
that.
going to be I who's going to find it. It's going to be you guys.
Right.
I cannot be loaded down with anything more. I'm 87 years old now. I'm feeling my age very strongly. This needs help. This is not for me. This is for everybody on the island who's got a Title V septic system. This is something that people have got to learn to speak up for what is right and just stop complying with what is deeply and fundamentally and hideously wrong.
You have to somehow find a pilot project or, get.
That's what my place, that's where I want the pilot project. I want a local pilot project. And I'm tired of the Vineyard not being proactive about this after all these years. And, as I say now, it's not, I'm not going to do anything to push it. I'm going to install my system, then I'm going to invite whoever would like to come and see it. And then there will be a popular vote.
Well, you've talked to the Board of Health.
Not recently,
Because
it's always.
I understand the Board of Health agent, his hand is kind of,
Oh, yeah, but he's a wonderful guy.
yes, he is a great guy.
And his hands are tied. I'm not going to pressure him to do anything. No.
Right.
If we can get a few hundred people together to jam into the room down there and just ask for a public hearing about this, other people are going to have to push for it because I'm going to be gone soon. And they're not going to force me to put in another AI system I am in the zone, so they have the right to do that, but my system is still functioning. So they're not going to, force me to spend. It would probably be, I would dare say, because of my terrain, which is very steep hill, no access, it probably costs at the very least $100,000 for me to put in.
Just like with Jared. Thank you, Anna, but we do have to move.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we do have to move on.
So
we're going to have
anyway,
another meeting in
this
here.
is up to you guys. And I'm hoping I can see an open mind in you, and I'm hoping for some help, because wouldn't that be something to bring to the community?
Mm-hmm.
And boy, the big pipers will not like you very much, but you're the kind of guy who knows a good thing when they see one.
Jared will take that idea and he'll mull it around, and
Yeah,
he can come up with something.
It'll keep him up at night.
I always said if the Catholic Church would bring back the devil's advocate position, I'd have been a priest, because I love looking at things and poking them apart, not because I think it's a bad thing, but because you poke it apart to make a better product.
Absolutely.
That's good. So there. We've got it on Jared's radar. He
Yeah,
will
good.
think it out
Work
and,
together.
Very good.
but it's gotta be something that, that we
Nice.
can take to Drew and
Nice to.
Yes.
make it work. Okay, everybody, I'm going to end this because we have another meeting to go to and,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Hang in there. Eventually they'll get it.
Thanks, Sherry. Thanks, Jared. Thank you, Anna. Great to see everybody.
John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.